extemporaneously how much I've enjoyed being here today and how much I've learned about the school in its present state. I'm going to talk about the past and the legacy, but you've been very welcoming to me. I feel a warmth and a vitality throughout the school and throughout the alumni. And the service, the gathering for Michael Hermes this afternoon was very moving to me. And I'm just so glad that I was here today. And thank you for receiving me, and thank you for being who you are. Now, the other thing, I'm going to talk about my grandfather, but I wrote a note for the end of this talk, which I want to read at the beginning. This talk is focused largely on the lineage and legacy of Ned Yeomans. Ned was his nickname. But I want to say at the outset that throughout these Yeomans generations, there have always been very strong women in the families and in the schools who have contributed to, supported, and sustained this creative, educational, and artistic work. My grandmother, as a case in point, Julia Day Yeomans in particular, was central to Ned's work here at the Ojai Valley School. And Guntram Thorne Thompson, whom Ned hired from the Francis Parker School in Chicago to be the first headmistress here, was a woman of extraordinary gift as an administrator, teacher, and storyteller. It is clear that, over the years, teaching at the school has been equally in the hands, minds, and hearts of women. That's the note for the end, because I'm talking about the largely male lineage of my grandfather. But I want to speak to the presence of women throughout our family and their contributions, and then also clearly in the school too. So, I'm the grandson of Edward Yeomans, known as Ned to his friends and colleagues, who founded the Ojai School in 1923 on the foundation of the Bristol School that had started in 1911. Though Ned died when I was only a year old, his life and writing influenced me profoundly, and I'm very grateful to be standing here tonight in his stead and speaking a bit about his legacy to the school and to his family and friends. He was a remarkable and gifted human being, beloved by many, and during his lifetime, a contributor to the fields of engineering, business, education, and philosophy. Ned himself was initially an inventor who worked with Thomas Edison, and then a businessman, but he too, like his grandfather, turned to education during the progressive era of John Dewey, and became a writer on education and philosophical subjects. He also taught himself the cello, and throughout his life was a musician as well as a woodworker like his father. In 1923, as you know, just short of 100 years after his grandfather John graduated from Williams College, he founded the Ojai Valley School at the request and funding of a businessman, Frank Frost, who had read the series of articles he had written on education for the Atlantic Monthly. That part of history you know. My father, Edward Jr., was also a cellist and a progressive educator in the footsteps of his father, Ned. And I, a grandson, have been poet, musician, and painter, as well as a spiritual psychologist. They say that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And it is remarkable to see the thread of concerns and work running through these 5 generations. And I see it continuing in our 2 sons. The thread consists of a core of values that Ned brought to the founding of this school. And since Michael Hermes often said there would be no Ojai Valley School without Ed Yeomans, this core is key. What is it? My sense is that it is a set of human values that constitute the soul of the school. And I'm going to speak about these qualities in this core of values. The first value is the importance of an experience of human depth and spiritual connection, not in a strictly religious sense, but in the experience of being fully alive and connected to nature, the planet, and the universe, knowing oneself fully and living one's particular life within that larger context. The second is what Ned termed, quote, the intelligence of the heart, unquote. The experience of a creative inner life of mind and feelings, and the exploration and expression of this life in a range of intellectual and artistic forms. Central here, as you might expect or suspect, is the work of the hands as well as the mind. And it is no mistake that when Ned founded the Ojai Valley School, he became the shop teacher and let others he trusted run the school. It was in the wood shop that he did his teaching. And I think that commitment, this is off my text, but I think that commitment to manual arts started with his grandfather being a blacksmith, and that was one of the threads that came through. The third value is the cultivation of a sense of beauty, both in artistic and intellectual endeavors, and also in the presence of nature and all creation. Ned says in Shackled Youth, a book he wrote at the beginning of his career as an educator, children are naturally heliotropic, but they are fearfully misled. They are given compasses that point every way, and the compasses they are entitled to point one way only, namely to beauty. For underneath beauty is moral order, and moral order is the one thing indispensable, unquote. This is the beauty that nurtures the soul and that leads to a disciplined and fruitful life. The fourth value, which arises from these three, is a sense of social responsibility and a deep love for the world. This value rises not from obligation or imposition, but from a profound inner recognition of how precious the world is, and that the natural response to this realization is to cherish and protect life rather than exploit or abuse it. And I would say from here, being here today, I would add a fifth value to this core, and I don't quite know how to describe it. The phrase I wrote down was a strong, pervasive love of life. I think I felt that in the gathering about what people said about Mike Hermes, and I think I felt it among you. I don't quite know how to have the words, and maybe this is something you could talk among yourselves, but there's a vitality, a loving strength that I feel in your community. And that's perhaps a value that's become stronger over time. Maybe that's something that Mike Hermes brought to the school. I don't know. But I want to include that because it's very impressive and tangible today. Anyway, education in Ned's eyes is what can cultivate and strengthen, literally from the Latin root educare, to lead out these values in children, and so help them become mature, productive, and creative adults, knowing themselves well and being fully engaged in the world. In these last 100 years, the conditions and forms of our life on this planet and in this country have changed dramatically. And certainly a litany of sorrows and inequities exist, as well as multiple challenges unforeseen a century ago. And yet, this core of values still holds, and is in fact a doorway to the growing possibilities that also exist at this time of great crisis and change. The Ojai Valley School was founded on this core, and the challenge to all of us, graduates, parents, teachers, administrators, is to stay true to these values and discern how they can be expressed in these current times. My sense is that the Ojai Valley School has done well in the first century. And our vigilance and commitment to this core, as it is expressed now, will ensure success in the next one. I'd like you to take a moment right now and reflect silently on how these values have affected you and what my speaking of them now touches in you. And I'm just going to repeat them, and just for you to reflect a little bit on your own experience of these values. First one, a human depth and self-knowing and a spiritual connection. Second one, an intelligence of the heart and hands. Third one, a sense of beauty and the moral order beneath it. Fourth one, social responsibility and a deep love of the world. And fifth one, strong, pervasive love of life. And then I'd like you also to look at your children and see how it is with them through Ned's eyes. In my previous visit to the school, and now again, I sense that all is quite well here, and that the future promising. In this, I sense Ned's legacy and spirit is alive and at work, and that he would be pleased with how the years have gone. At the same time, I'm sure he would say that a legacy is only as good as the acts that spring from it in the present. He would both praise and challenge us, a good mixture from his Presbyterian heritage, and point out that we are the responsible ones now. In this vein, I want to close with a quotation from The Sun's Family, which he wrote in 1941, just before he died. Another of Ned's writings from the end of his life. Here he is talking about the human being and the process of evolution. He is an incredible mixture. When he says he means the human being, he and she. He is an incredible mixture, but what can you expect? Nearly 1 million years of beast, and only 5,000 of anything approaching decency and kindliness and goodwill. The urge of nature for the higher levels will improve him as much in the future as in the past. Undoubtedly, our business is to help. And the way to do this is to get rid of every mean little trick there is in us and be good fortune to every single person and animal we meet. I don't want to read that again. And the way to help is to get rid of every mean little trick there is in us, and we all have mean little tricks, and be good fortune, to every single person and animal we meet. So I say, he's still speaking, it's not me. So I say, let's become life members of the Earth Lover Society and fit to live on a planet like this. There is no such planet in our solar system, and probably not in any solar system in the universe. It is not only all that we have, but it is all we could possibly wish for. It is impossible to imagine anything better. But we can spoil it. We can make it into a hell. And America's destiny is to prevent that. And you are Americans. So don't have any doubt about the kind of persons you must be. Lovers of Earth, of generosity and of beauty, of law and order, of cooperation, and a society of friends, unquote. Again, my thanks to you all of you, for asking me to come and speak for my grandfather, who has been so important in my own life. It has been both a great privilege and a great pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you.